I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. The new obedience and the old obedience. That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. The new obedience. Now that we believe that Jesus died and rose again for us, that we are baptized into the faith of Jesus, that we are fed the very body and blood of Jesus, good works flow. Like a good tree bears good fruit. Now, this new obedience, the obedience that comes from faith, is different from the old obedience. Don't think that it's the same. The old obedience was all about earning and requirements and have-tos and musts. It was the way of the law, of sin and death and condemnation, of do this and you will live, and don't do and you will die. That is the old obedience, the old covenant, the failed, false, misleading dream that God, his law had given, that sinners could themselves redeem and by their works gain heaven. That's the old way. The new way, the obedience that comes from faith, is free. It is free from the condemnation and the requirements of the law. It is an obedience that flows from, is centered in the gospel. That is faith. It is not a have-to obedience. It is a get-to obedience. It's a freedom to serve others. You see, what the law commanded before, with the threat of death, is now done in faith, in the forgiveness of sins, for the neighbor, freely. The service that was required, that we had to do in order to be saved, is now done freely, in the mercy and love of Jesus. And that is Jesus doing it through us doing it, but yet we would never point to ourselves and say, hey, look at the obedience that I have. No, we are unworthy servants. And the difference between the old and new is that the old was to save ourselves. The old was under the law. The new is free. Free to serve others without the threat of the law. Free to really do good works now that we have been redeemed. Free to love and serve our neighbor. And so the difference between old and new obedience, between the stuff done by unbelievers and the stuff done by those who are in the faith, is faith. That is the forgiveness of sins, the freedom of the gospel. And the Lord did not save us in order to make us finally do the old obedience, as if that's what this was all about. Law, gospel, then law. No, he rescued us to free us from the condemnation and the requirements of the law, in order so that we might pick up the law, use the law to love and serve our neighbor. That is, to drown the old Adam that wants to just save itself, that wants to do good works to merit God's favor, and now to take the law and be instructed by the law, be free enough to be instructed by the law, and to use the law in order to drown that Adam, so that we might freely serve our neighbor. Freely, as we have been given to. Freely, as we have been saved. Gospelly, as we have been gospeled. This is not law for the sake of obedience. This is the obedience that comes from faith. That is good works that flow from the good forgiven tree. That is the difference between the old and the new obedience. It's Jesus. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this has been another Higher Things video short.